Are you crazy, or is it gaslighting? In this video, I'm going to discuss some of the phrases that you might hear. Gaslighting is a covert way of distorting another person's perception of reality, making them question their sanity and their memory. It's crazy making. You actually think you're going crazy. You start to believe the abuser's version of events, and they slowly begin to take over your life. It's used to make you feel that something is wrong with you. And these tactics deflect from their behaviour, making you feel that you were mentally unstable or that you were overreacting. For people healing from these toxic relationships, this can cause emotional confusion and anxiety. And eventually you may have started to wonder what was happening and believe that you couldn't trust your own judgment. Welcome to the Divorce Sanctuary. I'm Elizabeth, author of Finding Lily and the A to Z of Emotional Abuse. On this channel, I talk about healing from emotional abuse and divorcing emotionally from the abuser. I want to remind you that love should be unconditional and divorcing emotionally is life-changing. You have a duty of care to yourself. I want you to understand and process what's happening inside you and to help you discover the best tools to heal on a deeper level, becoming the best version of yourself. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe and like the video. It helps get the content further out. It also shows me exactly what you need, what you're looking for at this moment. Everything that I talk about in this video, you will find in the description box below. In this video, I'm going to talk about what gaslighting is and why it is the master manipulator's favourite tool. I'm also going to give you some common examples of gaslighting and explain how gaslighting can affect you. And if you stay to the end, I'm going to give you some tips on how to deal with gaslighting. Gaslighting is a covert, aggressive way of distorting another person's perception of reality to the point that that person questions their sanity or their memory. Gaslighting is crazy making at its finest, and it makes you think you're actually going crazy. It's a way of hiding abuse. Gaslighting was used to make you feel that something was wrong with you. The abuser used tactics to deflect from their behaviour, making you feel you're mentally unstable or that you were overreacting. And for people healing from toxic relationships, this can cause emotional confusion and anxiety. As you listen to this video, you might think, well, I say some of those things. Wonder, am I the abuser? Gaslighting comes in many forms. If you think about PR companies, they use it to change our perception of a person or a situation. The media use forms of gaslighting. Have you ever watched a newsreel and it was so badly edited that you could tell that a person had more to say? If you grew up in a toxic environment, you might have heard some of these terms. And as children, we're sponges and we take what we hear and what we see as the truth. Up until the age of about 7 or 8, we live in a theta state. And this is what happens. We literally drink in or soak up what's being told to us. So in a way, the way we have been spoken to, we parrot, fashion, repeat back. As you grew up, you might have realised that not everybody does the same thing. They don't speak in the same way or behave in the same way. Not everybody manipulates other people or triangulates them to create jealousy. This is something you might have noticed. Gaslighting is an insidious form of manipulation and psychological control. Victims are deliberately and systematically fed false information that leads them to question what they know to be true, often about themselves. Over time, a gaslighter's manipulations can grow more complex, making it increasingly difficult for the victim to see the truth. So unless you're using this video for research on how to manipulate others, the fact that you are researching this video for your own healing would suggest that you're taking responsibility for your role and wanting to stop this from ever happening again. If you're concerned, you could ask yourself the motives of your statements. Are they deliberate or to manipulate and control the person that they're directed at? So for example, later I will discuss phrases, and one on a very simple search will bring up "that never happened." Now, I've said that myself when I was protecting myself from being gaslit. I knew where I was standing when this situation was happening. I have a really astute recall for events. It's almost photographic, giving me little snapshots. And I wasn't saying the statement to manipulate or control. It was done as a form of protection. So just ask yourself, if you hear those words coming out or you think you've said them in the past, were you doing it as a form of manipulation? Was it to control another person? And now that you know these terms that could be construed in different ways and as a way of gaslighting, you can correct yourself. We're all here to learn and to heal on a really deep level. Gaslighting is used to gain power and control, and through the process, the abuse takes away your self-esteem and it places the abuser as chief caregiver, and you turn to the abuser believing they care about you, when in fact what they're actually doing is abusing you. Gaslighters are liars. They're unable to take responsibility for their actions, and they point to someone else. In the words of Shaggy, when they get caught red-handed, "It wasn't me." As I said, gaslighting is used to gain power and control over other people. A gaslighter will use their words to convince you that they're right and your perception of what happened is wrong. They might point out all the other people who are doing what they are doing, questioning why you have a problem. Other wives, husbands, partners allow this to happen. They use it to minimize what happened. What is your problem? They will use it to erase the abuse that took place. They will play the victim, evade responsibility. Gaslighting is used to fabricate or exaggerate conversations or events that never happened. They use gaslighting to go back on a commitment or a promise that they had previously made, saying, "I never said that," or "if I did, I didn't mean this Saturday." They gaslight you to make you feel you're crazy, to second guess yourself in every area of your life and come to the conclusion you can't trust yourself. They use phrases such as, "I didn't say that, what I said was," or "I didn't say which Saturday." They might claim something didn't happen or ask why you're making such a fuss about it. It was your idea in the first place. Or they blame shift their bad behaviour to being your fault. If you had given them more attention, if you hadn't gone off with your friends for the evening, they wouldn't have done whatever they've done. And when you start to question things, they call you crazy or paranoid. And one of my not so favourite ones is, you have trust issues. Is it their behaviour that has caused you to have trust issues, not, as they're claiming, other relationships? You might be told that you're overreacting. And another not so favourite of mine is too sensitive. And I was only joking. And then to cement the gaslighting, their second favourite tool, triangulation, telling you that it's not just them that have noticed your behaviour, other people are worried about you as well. The phrases, "it was just a joke," or "you're too sensitive," are actually used as well in the idealization stage. They're used to check at that point how invested you are in the relationship. So if they haven't hooked you in enough and you start to pick up on, "Oh, that's a bit weird, why are you behaving like that?" or saying these things, they will say, "Oh, it was only a joke," or you're just too sensitive, "I was only joking." They will also claim that they told you about an event, or that they were going to be home from work late, or they might even try and convince you that they always come in at this time. What's your problem? And you're left trying to recall that situation, that conversation, trying to remember, wondering if you weren't listening or if there was something wrong with your memory recall. So these phrases and statements are to control you, and they're used to blame shift and disguise their bad behaviour. They will lie about what other people are doing and making you believe that you're in the wrong. They might ask you if you saw someone else and how they were flirting. Did you see how Des was flirting in front of his wife? And you're wondering, well, I was sat there talking to her all evening and I didn't see that behaviour. It might be that somebody else is using porn in the office and they'd been caught out. They're minimising these events, making you question if your morals are too high and why you're so upset when other people seem to accept that it's okay. Gaslighting is used to make you feel something was wrong with you. They use tactics to deflect from their behaviour, making you feel you were mentally unstable or that you were overreacting. For people healing from these toxic relationships, this can cause emotional confusion and anxiety. You may have started to wonder what was happening, questioning your own judgment. And when you experience any form of anxiety or go through a prolonged period of stress, your brain goes into survival mode. You can't make decisions. You can barely look after yourself. This is very different from a normal breakup of a relationship, be it romantic or a friendship or with a family member or a work colleague. Only a person that's gone through this very specific form of abuse will understand what it's like and how deep this trauma runs. Gaslighting often develops gradually, making it difficult for a person to detect. This is why I describe emotional abuse as like Chinese water torture. It happens very slowly and it turns you insane. Some of the techniques one person might use to gaslight another are countering. This describes a person questioning someone's memory. They might say things such as, "You never remember things accurately," or "Are you sure? You know you have a bad memory." Another way is withholding. This is when someone withholds. They refuse to engage in a conversation. A person using this technique may to pretend not to understand what someone is trying to describe, or they just don't respond. So, for example, they might say, "I do not know what you're talking about. You're just trying to confuse me." Another form is trivializing, and this occurs when a person belittles or degrades another person's feelings. So they might accuse them of being too sensitive or overreacting when they are valid concerns and feelings that they have. Another way is denial. Denial involves a person pretending to forget events or how they occurred. They may deny having said something or done something, or actually accuse the other person of making it up. Another way is diverting, and with this technique, a person changes the focus of the discussion and they question the person's credibility instead. So, for example, they might say, "This is just another one of your crazy ideas," or "Have you been listening to your friends again?" Anyone can experience gaslighting, but it's especially common in intimate friendships or relationships. With the intimate partner, an abuser may cause someone to be irrational or crazy in order to isolate them, undermine their confidence, and to take control. It might be in a child-parent relationship. Abusive caregivers use gaslighting to shame and control children. Again, they might be accused of being too sensitive and they belittle their feelings. It can happen in the medical field as well, where gaslighting occurs when a doctor or a professional dismisses or trivializes a person's health based on the assumption that they're mentally ill. They might tell them that it's all in their head. Then there's racial gaslighting, and this is done where people apply the techniques to a group. For example, a person may deny that a specific group experiences discrimination despite evidence that says otherwise. There's political gaslighting, and examples include downplaying or hiding things. And this occurs when a political figure or group lies, denies, or manipulates information to control people. There's institutional gaslighting, and this can be done where a company or organisation may deny or hide information, lie to employees about their rights, or portray whistleblowers who uncover problems in the organisation as incompetent or mentally ill. Signs you might have experienced gaslighting are feeling confused and constantly second guessing yourself. Find it difficult to make simple decisions. Frequently questioning if you are too sensitive. You might become withdrawn, or you might become unsociable. You might apologize all the time, not just to the abusive person, to friends, family, people you bump into in the street when it isn't your fault. You might lie to your friends and family, avoid having to make contact with them. You might feel hopeless. You might feel worthless and incompetent. As I said, gaslighting causes anxiety and depression. It's a psychological trauma. Some of the common phrases that you might hear are, "You're always overreacting." They do this to wind you up, pushing your buttons so they can sit back with their popcorn and watch you explode. And this is what it's done. They've learned everything about you. And they do this during the divorce process as well. They know how to trigger you. They know how to get you fired up. And they will go out of their way to do that. They want you to react. They want you to overreact, because these explosions allow them to say to other people, "See, I told you, that's what I've been living with. That's who this person is." Another phrase is, "This is your problem." And then they go into all the reasons. Again, during this idealization stage, they've understood who you are. They understand your insecurities, and they understand what you don't like about yourself. And you've trusted them. You've handed that information over, and they now use it as a way of getting you to react, making you feel insecure and lowering your self-esteem. Another one is, "It didn't happen like that." Changing the story. It was a joke. Again, minimizing your reality. You have trust issues, or you're too sensitive. And this is usually to get you to back down and to question yourself and not look at this as a big deal, or to question them and what they've been up to. It's shifting the blame away from them. It's that distraction tactic. And as I said, you might hear things like, "I didn't say that," or "If I said it, I didn't mean it like that," or "I meant another day." They just change everything to fit with their narrative. And with the abusers, once the words have left their lips, they believe them. They believe that was actually the truth, and that's what's happened. Gaslighting is very dangerous. It creates confusion, brain fog, self-doubt. You might feel like you're losing your mind, second guessing yourself, unable to make decisions. You might feel lonely, not knowing who you can trust, as you're hearing about all these people that are worried about you or have raised concerns about your behaviour. This can lead to guilt and paranoia and feeling vulnerable, wondering what actions are causing others to talk about you to the abuser, and not to raise these concerns with yourself. The abuser will keep you close enough to these people for them to be a threat, but far enough apart that you can't compare notes. This affects the way you see others and the way you see yourself, not feeling good enough and misunderstood. Understanding the cycle of abuse, gaslighting and other tactics that are used helps you to make sense of everything. And once you understand that, you can start to call this behavior out and the relationship as abusive. You can start to move forward with your healing. This form of abuse penetrates on so many different levels. Your brain was tricked to believe that what you were told was the truth, and it takes time for you to de-traumatize. And it is so easy to slip down that dark hole when you're faced with new facts and new situations. You're never going to get the closure that you need, and this is part of the game. The unmet needs of the abuser as a child meant that they were unable to master critical emotional development. And I discovered many years ago that you could understand the age that they experienced this trauma. In certain situations, they'd revert back to a child. And I bet if you think back, you could probably work out what age that was as well. So when they were threatened or they perceived danger, I noticed that they might walk or talk in a childish way. Narcissism is a personality disorder which is diagnosed by a mental health professional. The narcissist can't take responsibility for their actions. And if you've been discarded by one, it's likely that you took the blame for the breakdown of this relationship. So it's unlikely that they're going to agree to an appointment for a diagnosis. A healthy person can see that they've made a mistake They try to correct that mistake. They hold their hands up and they might say, yes, I'm really sorry. They don't do everything in their power to prove that there is nothing wrong with them putting the blame on another person. A punch in the face is the same regardless of the motive behind it. The flying fist, the impact, the damage caused, they're all the same. When you come out of these types of relationships, you don't trust yourself. You listen to every detail of every conversation. People do make mistakes. And eventually you'll be able to work out that difference of someone gaslighting you to genuine mistakes. You'll find a way of understanding when you start to heal, and you'll be able to stand with confidence and say, I remember the conversation, can honestly say you told me it was 4:00, or do you know what, I actually can't remember the time. And if you're being lied to, you can also stand with conviction and say, we didn't have that conversation. Your mind has gone into hibernation. It knew what was happening was abuse, and it does this to protect itself. You might now need to coax it out. Doing that by creating safe spaces where you can allow your body to relax and you can tell it that it's safe, as long as it is. As I said at the beginning, I would give you some tips to deal with gaslighting. Gaslighting is a covert way of distorting another person's perception of reality, making them question their sanity and their memory. It's crazy making. Actually makes you believe you're going crazy. You start to believe the abuser's version of events, and slowly they begin to take over your life. It was used to make you feel that there was something wrong with you. And these tactics are to deflect from the abuser's behavior, making you feel mentally unstable or that you're overreacting. And for people coming out of these toxic relationships, it can cause emotional confusion and anxiety. Eventually, you may have started to wonder what was happening and if you could trust your own judgment. If you're trying to understand what has been going on through this emotional abuse, when you heard this list, how did you feel and how did you relate to it? When you're coming out of these relationships, you might have more questions than answers. And it's easy to slip into rumination, which is this process of continuously thinking the same thoughts, and they tend to be sad and dark. Rumination can be very dangerous to your mental health, and it prolongs the ability to think and process emotions. Ground into your body, staying out of your head and staying in your body helps you process what has been happening. Breathing and counting, that's box breathing, helps you balance the stress hormones and calm down your system. Writing out what happened gives you the permission to call this abuse. You still might be protecting the abuser, justifying their behaviour and the reason that they treated you in this way. When you're dealing with someone and you feel that you might be being manipulated, start to look and see if there are any inconsistencies between what they say and their actions. And tune in, go inside and feel or sense if something feels off or not quite right. Do you get a gut feeling about what's being said or their actions? And you might find it useful to use a notebook or a diary to record information. Look at these patterns. You might notice that every time you make plans with someone, you either get the date or the time wrong. Think of the phrases as red flags as well. So if you hear, I didn't say that, make a note. And if you hear it again, then start to look at other ways of protecting yourself. Move this person out of your life or start writing things down. If you start to understand that you are being gaslit, don't let them know that you've realised this is what's going on. They might not actually even realise it themselves. Know that you're responsible for yourself and protecting yourself. Remember, they will deny and blame shift anyway. When you spot abuse, start writing out your story. And this will help you to remind you that this isn't your fault or you. This is a master manipulator at work who will stop at nothing in order to not face their own trauma or faults. When you start to question yourself or doubt your ability, stop for a moment and then listen to the voices in your head and see if you recognize the way that the sentence is constructed or the words that are being used. You might even hear the abuser's voice. Know that this is a thought that has been programmed into your brain. Start to trust your intuition. If it feels off, it usually is. If you found this video helpful in some way, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. It helps with the algorithms within YouTube. They tell other people that this video, it might be of interest to them. As I said, I'm going to put the links to any comments that I made in the description box below. I'm also going to link some resources that will help you. Sending you loads and loads of love.